When Mrs. Peterson mocked Amara Malik for claiming her father was a military helicopter pilot, the 8-year-old felt the familiar sting of being Muslim in post-9/11 America. "People like you shouldn't make up stories about our military," the teacher sneered, eyeing Amara's hijab. No one believed her, her truth dismissed simply because of her faith. But outside Pinecrest Elementary, a man in a black SUV watched, hunting for secrets Amara unknowingly carried. When career day arrived, the building shook as a stealth helicopter descended. Captain Tariq Malik, decorated American soldier, arrived to prove that patriotism isn't determined by religion, and America's most dangerous mistake is silencing a child because she prays differently. Before we begin, write in the comments where you're listening to our stories from. Subscribe to our channel. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Enjoy the story. Chapter 1. The Unbelieved Truth. Sunshine streamed through the windows of Mrs. Peterson's third-grade classroom at Pinecrest Elementary as children settled into their seats for the start of Parent Career Week. The excitement in the air was palpable. Everyone except Amara Malik, who sat quietly near the back, her small fingers nervously adjusting her pale blue hijab. "All right, everyone," Mrs. Peterson announced, clapping her hands twice. "Let's begin our sharing time. Who would like to go first?" Several eager hands shot up. "Mrs. Peterson called on Tommy Anderson first. The freckle-faced boy bounded to the front, practically bouncing on his toes. "My mom's a dentist," Tommy declared proudly. "She fixes people's teeth and makes them smile again. She even has her own office with her name on the door." Mrs. Peterson nodded approvingly. "That's wonderful, Tommy. Dentists help keep us healthy. Thank you for sharing." Next came Sophia Wilson, whose father owned the local hardware store, then Jason Evans, whose mother was an accountant. One by one, the children shared their parents' occupations, each receiving a warm smile and words of encouragement from Mrs. Peterson. Amara watched silently, waiting patiently for her turn. Unlike many of her classmates, she wasn't waving her hand frantically in the air. When most of the other students had shared, Amara finally raised her hand. "Yes, Amara," Mrs. Peterson said, her voice containing noticeably less enthusiasm than it had for the other children. Amara stood up and walked to the front of the room. She was smaller than most of her classmates, with dark eyes that held an unusual seriousness for a child her age. Though quiet by nature, there was a determined set to her shoulders as she faced the class. "My dad's a pilot," she began, her voice clear and steady. "He flies helicopters, sometimes big ones for the military." Mrs. Peterson paused, her eyebrows rising slightly. She let out a small, sarcastic chuckle. "That's quite the story, Amara." Amara's smile faltered, confusion flickering across her face. "It's not a story, Mrs. Peterson. It's his job." Before Mrs. Peterson could respond, Billy Parker began making loud helicopter noises, his arms outstretched like rotor blades. "Whoop, whoop, whoop. Coming in for landing, Captain Malik?" he mocked. "Sure," Rachel Turner said with an eye roll. "And my dad's Captain America." Laughter erupted across the classroom. Amara stood frozen at the front, her small hands clasped tightly together. She tried to maintain her smile, but her eyes betrayed her hurt. Mrs. Peterson did nothing to stop the laughter. In fact, the corner of her mouth twitched upward slightly before she finally raised her hand for quiet. "That's a nice imagination, Amara," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "But let's focus on real jobs." Her gaze lingered on Amara's hijab. "People like you shouldn't make up stories about our military. Everyone knows your mother works at the hospital. Let's stick to that, shall we?" The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. A few children shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but most giggled again. "But my dad is a pilot," Amara insisted, her voice smaller now. "He really is." "That's enough," Mrs. Peterson said sharply, motioning for Amara to return to her seat. "Let's move on to someone else." As Amara walked back to her desk, head down, she didn't notice the one set of eyes that followed her sympathetically. Daniel Chen, a thin boy with glasses too big for his face, watched her from his corner seat. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but then closed it again, his own insecurities silencing him. Later that day, Mrs. Peterson lounged in the teacher's break room, coffee mug in hand as she chatted with Mrs. Green, the fourth-grade teacher. "You won't believe what Amara Malik said today," Mrs. Peterson said, rolling her eyes. "She told the entire class her father flies military helicopters." Mrs. Green raised an eyebrow. "The Muslim girl with the single mom?" "Exactly," Mrs. Peterson nodded. That child is always trying to seem more American than she is, making up stories for attention. She took a sip of her coffee. I mean, can you imagine someone like that in our military? After everything that happened? Neither teacher noticed Mr. Ramirez, the janitor, pausing briefly by the doorway, his weathered face frowning slightly at their conversation before he continued pushing his cart down the hallway. During recess, Amara sat alone on a bench at the edge of the playground while other children ran and played. She hunched over a small notepad, carefully drawing the outline of a helicopter. She added details with precision: rotor blades, windows, landing skids. Daniel hovered nearby, watching her draw. He wanted to approach, to tell her he believed her, but his stutter always seemed worst around new people, so he stayed back, silently observing as she pressed a sticky note into her notebook and continued drawing. When the final bell rang, Amara packed up her belongings and began her walk home. Unlike most children who left in groups or were picked up by parents, Amara walked alone, her purple backpack seeming too large for her small frame. She dragged her feet slightly, in no hurry to reach her destination. As she passed the park 2 blocks from school, she failed to notice a dark SUV parked along the sidewalk. Inside sat a man wearing sunglasses, his attention fixed on the elementary school in the distance. When Amara walked by, his head turned slightly, tracking her movement. He made a note in a small black notebook before starting the engine and driving slowly in the opposite direction. Amara arrived home to find her mother, Nadia, rushing around the kitchen in scrubs, preparing a quick dinner before her night shift at the hospital. "There's my girl," Nadia said warmly, pausing to kiss Amara's forehead. "How was school today, Habibti?" Amara dropped her backpack on a kitchen chair and forced a smile. "It was fine." Nadia studied her daughter's face for a moment, sensing something wasn't right, but the timer on the oven beeped, pulling her attention away. "I made your favorite biryani. I've got to leave in 20 minutes, but Mrs. Johnson from next door will check on you before bedtime, okay?" Amara nodded, the practiced routine of a child who understood her mother's demanding work schedule. After dinner, and once her mother had left for her shift, Amara retreated to her bedroom. It was a small but cozy space with walls painted sky blue, her father's choice when she was just a baby. From beneath her bed, Amara pulled out a shoebox decorated with stickers of clouds and airplanes. She opened it carefully, as if handling precious treasure. Inside lay the evidence of her truth. Photographs of a handsome man with features that mirrored her own, in military uniform standing beside various helicopters, colorful flight patches with emblems and squadron numbers, and a folded letter on official-looking stationery that read, "From the cockpit. Love, Baba." Amara ran her fingers over the items, tears finally spilling onto her cheeks. She hadn't lied. She would never lie about her father. Why didn't they believe her? That night, as she lay in bed waiting for sleep, Amara reached for her most prized possession, a toy walkie-talkie her father had given her before his last deployment. It didn't actually work, but that didn't matter. It was their special connection. She pressed the plastic button and whispered into it, "Come back soon, Baba." "They don't believe me." Then she closed her eyes, imagining her words traveling across oceans and deserts, finding her father wherever he might be, letting him know she was waiting. In her dreams that night, Amara saw her father clearly. The memory was from nearly a year ago, one of the last times he'd been home. Captain Tariq Malik sat on the edge of her bed, still in his flight suit, having come straight from the base to tuck her in. "Do you fly high enough to touch the stars?" Amara had asked, her eyes heavy with sleep. Tariq smiled, his hand gently stroking her hair. "Almost, little moon. Almost." "Promise you'll come back," she murmured. "I'll always come back," he whispered. "Always." Amara woke with a start, the dream memory so vivid she could almost smell her father's cologne, a mix of sandalwood and something uniquely him. Her digital clock glowed 2:17 a.m. The house was silent except for the occasional creak of settling wood. Carefully, Amara slipped out of bed and padded down the hallway. In the kitchen drawer, beneath a stack of takeout menus, was her mother's emergency satellite phone, the special one they were only supposed to use when absolutely necessary. Amara knew the number by heart. She'd watched her mother dial it countless times. Her small fingers punched in the sequence of numbers, and she waited, heart racing, as the strange series of tones indicated the secure line connecting. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. "Security protocol Alpha 9 or 6, identify." The voice was formal, clipped. "It's Amara," she whispered. "Amara Malik. I need to talk to my Baba." A pause, then some muffled voices. Finally, "Stand by." Minutes passed before she heard his voice. "Little Moon, is that you?" Tears welled in her eyes at the sound of her nickname. "Baba, they laughed at school. They didn't believe me when I said what you do." His voice remained measured, calm, but there was an edge to it she couldn't quite read. "I'm sorry, Habibti. People don't always understand jobs like mine." "When are you coming home?" Another pause. "Soon, I promise. But Amara, you shouldn't be using this phone unless it's an emergency." "This is an emergency," she insisted. "To my heart." She heard a soft chuckle, then his voice grew serious again. "I love you, Little Moon. I have to go now. Be brave for me, okay? Okay, Baba. I love—" But the line had already gone dead. The next morning, Nadia noticed immediately that her satellite phone had been moved. As she prepared breakfast, she watched Amara picking at her cereal, dark circles under her young eyes. "Did you use the emergency phone last night?" Nadia asked, keeping her voice gentle. Amara nodded without looking up. Nadia sighed, sitting down across from her daughter. "Sweetie, I know you miss him." "I do too, but that phone is only for real emergencies." "I needed to hear him," Amara mumbled. Nadia reached across the table and squeezed Amara's hand. "I understand, but he's deep in assignment right now. The last message I got was weeks ago." She didn't add that this was the longest Tariq had ever gone without contacting them, or that her own worry was growing by the day. Chapter 2. The Watchful Eyes. At school, Amara tried to stay invisible, still stinging from yesterday's humiliation. But during the staff meeting before classes began, Mrs. Peterson was making sure Amara remained a topic of discussion. "I'm concerned about Amara Malik," she said to the school counselor, Mr. Patterson. "She's exhibiting signs of behavioral issues, making up elaborate stories about her father." Her voice lowered. "It might be worth monitoring. Single-parent household, Muslim background. You know how they can be. She might be creating an imaginary father figure to compensate." Mr. Patterson made a note in his file, though he looked less convinced than Mrs. Peterson would have liked. "I'll have a talk with her today," he said, measuring his words carefully. That afternoon, as the children were being dismissed, Amara spotted something that made her freeze momentarily at the school entrance. The same black SUV she'd glimpsed yesterday was now parked directly across from the school. Though she couldn't see through its tinted windows, something about its presence sent a chill through her small body. She changed her usual route home, cutting through the playground and taking the path behind the community center. Once she was certain no one was following, she hurried the rest of the way home. What Amara couldn't see was what was happening inside that SUV. A man with close-cropped hair and cold eyes studied a tablet displaying encrypted photographs. Amara's school ID, pictures of Nadia leaving the hospital after her shift, satellite images showing the layout of Pinecrest Elementary. He spoke quietly into a phone, his words in a language that would have been unfamiliar to most Americans. Target confirmed. Routine established. Waiting for extraction orders. That evening, Nadia's younger sister Layla came over for dinner. After Amara went to bed, the sisters sat in the living room, teacups in hand. "Have you heard anything?" Layla asked, her voice low. Nadia shook her head. "Nothing concrete in almost a month." Layla set her cup down carefully. "Nadia, you need to consider the possibilities. You're sure Tariq's still in service? People vanish all the time from those secret ops." "He wouldn't leave us," Nadia said firmly, though there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "I'm not saying he left willingly," Layla replied gently. "I'm saying there are risks in his line of work. Risks you've always known about." Nadia took a long sip of tea. "He promised Amara he'd always come back. He wouldn't break that promise unless—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Layla reached for her sister's hand. "Have you tried contacting his commanding officer again?" "They won't tell me anything. Classified mission. Need-to-know basis." Nadia's frustration was evident. "And now Amara's teacher thinks she's making him up completely." "What? That's ridiculous." Apparently, Amara told her class that her father flies helicopters for the military, and this woman basically called her a liar in front of everyone. Layla's eyes narrowed. "Oh, hell no. You need to go down there and set that woman straight." "With what proof?" Nadia sighed. "Most of Tariq's missions are undocumented." "I have pictures, sure, but that doesn't prove he's still active duty or even—" Her voice broke on the last word. Unknown to both women, Amara sat huddled at the top of the stairs, listening to every word, her small heart pounding with fear. The next day during recess, Amara found a quiet corner of the playground and began to draw with renewed purpose. This time, she created a scene of a giant helicopter hovering above her school, a rope ladder dangling down to where a small figure, clearly meant to be herself, waited with arms outstretched. She was so absorbed in her drawing that she didn't notice Daniel until he was standing right beside her. Without a word, he sat down and pulled out a box of crayons from his pocket. He selected a metallic silver one and carefully drew what looked like a badge or emblem next to the helicopter. Above it, in neat block letters, he wrote, "Rescue." Amara looked at him in surprise. "You believe me?" Daniel nodded, pushing his glasses up his nose. "My uncle was in the Air Force," he managed, his stutter less pronounced than usual. "Your dad sounds like him." It was the first time anyone at school had shown her kindness since career week began, and Amara felt a warm spark of friendship ignite between them. The following day, Amara brought something special to class, a small, detailed model of an Apache helicopter that her father had given her. During show and tell, she placed it carefully on her desk. Mrs. Peterson noticed it immediately. With a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes, she picked up the model and held it for the class to see. "Look, everyone," she said with exaggerated enthusiasm. "See, class? This is how far imagination can take you. Amara has even brought a toy to match her story." Several children giggled. Amara's face burned with shame, but she kept her chin up. "It's not a toy," she said quietly but firmly. "It's a scale model. My Baba showed me all the parts, Mrs." Peterson's smile thinned as she placed the helicopter back on Amara's desk with a dismissive pat. "Yes, dear. Very creative. Though I do wonder why you insist on these fantasies. There are plenty of respectable jobs your people can have without making up stories about our military." The words landed like a slap. Several children looked uncomfortable, but no one spoke up. Daniel, however, was furiously scribbling something on a piece of paper, his face flushed with anger. That afternoon, as Nadia sorted through the mail after work, she found an envelope with no return address. Inside was a photograph that made her blood run cold. Amara playing outside their home, taken from a high angle as if from a rooftop or tree. Along with it was a typed note. "We're watching. He can't hide forever." Nadia's hands shook as she immediately reached for her phone to call the police. But as her finger hovered over the dial button, doubt crept in. What if this was related to Tariq's work? Involving local authorities could potentially make things worse. She needed to be smart about this. Instead, she called the secure number she used for emergencies related to Tariq. When the operator answered, Nadia spoke in a hushed, urgent tone. "This is Nadia Malik, wife of Captain Tariq Malik. We've received a threat. I need to speak with someone in command immediately." As night fell, Amara lay in bed clutching her walkie-talkie, unaware of the danger circling ever closer to her family. In the darkness, she whispered her nightly message. "Baba, if you can hear me, I still believe in you, even if no one else does." Miles away, in an undisclosed location, Captain Tariq Malik stood before a wall of surveillance monitors, his face illuminated by their blue glow. On one screen, he could see his home, the lights just going out as his family prepared for sleep. His expression hardened as an aide approached with a folder marked "Classified." "Sir, we've intercepted communications. They've located your family." Tariq took the folder, his decision already made. Prepare the extraction team. It's time to bring them home. The classroom buzzed with excitement as Mrs. Peterson tapped her pointer against the whiteboard to get everyone's attention. Behind her, written in neat purple marker, were the words, "Hero in the Classroom Week." "Listen up, everyone," she announced, her voice carrying across the room. "Next week is going to be very special. Each of you will bring a parent or guardian to speak about their job and how they contribute to our community." The third graders whispered excitedly to each other. Tommy Anderson nudged his friend and whispered that his mom was going to bring real dental tools to show the class. Rachel Turner was already planning how her accountant father would make math seem cool. "You'll need to have these permission slips signed," Mrs. Peterson continued, holding up a stack of bright yellow papers. "Make sure your parent or guardian can commit to the date signed. No last-minute cancellations, please." As she moved between the rows distributing the forms, Amara sat up straighter in her seat. Without hesitation, her hand shot into the air. "Yes, Amara, Mrs. Peterson's tone cooled noticeably. "My Baba's coming," Amara said with quiet confidence, her eyes shining. "He can show pictures of his helicopter." The classroom went silent. Mrs. Peterson's lips pressed into a thin line before curving into a condescending smile. "Well," she said, drawing out the word, "we'll pencil him in, if he exists." Several children giggled. Daniel, sitting 2 rows over, looked down at his desk, his face flushed with secondhand embarrassment. Mrs. Peterson placed a permission slip on Amara's desk. "I'll need your mother's signature by Friday." The emphasis on mothers was subtle but unmistakable. Later that morning, Amara was surprised when Mr. Patterson, the school counselor, appeared at the classroom door and asked to speak with her. She followed him down the hallway to his office, a small room with motivational posters and a bookshelf full of colorful titles about feelings. "Have a seat, Amara," he said kindly, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "I just wanted to check in with you. How are things going?" Amara shrugged. "Fine. Mrs. Peterson mentioned you've been talking about your dad being a helicopter pilot." "He is," Amara said firmly. "Mr.?" Patterson leaned forward slightly. "Amara, sometimes when we miss someone very much, or when we wish for something to be true, our minds can make it seem real to us. Is your dad someone real or someone you wish was real?" Amara's eyes widened with indignation. "He's real! His name is Tariq Malik. He flies Black Hawk helicopters. He has medals, Mr. Patterson made a note on his pad. "And when was the last time you saw your dad, Amara?" She hesitated, trying to remember exactly. "Before school started, last summer." "That's quite a while ago," he said softly. "Do you have pictures of him at home?" "Yes, lots of them. And his patches and letters." Mr. Patterson nodded, his expression sympathetic in a way that made Amara's stomach twist. He didn't believe her either. None of them did. That evening, Nadia was preparing dinner when her phone rang. Seeing the school's number, she answered immediately, always alert for any issues involving Amara. "Miss Malik? This is Principal Winters from Pinecrest Elementary." "Is everything okay with Amara?" Nadia asked, instantly concerned. "She's fine physically, but we'd like to discuss some concerns about her emotional well-being." Mrs. Peterson and Mr. Patterson have noted that Amara has been creating elaborate stories about her father being a military helicopter pilot. Nadia nearly dropped the phone. "Excuse me? We're concerned about these fantasies and would like to recommend a psychological screening. It's not uncommon for children from single-parent households to—" "Single-parent?" Nadia interrupted, her voice rising. "My husband is on active duty. He's a captain in the army assigned to a classified unit. Just because he's deployed doesn't mean he doesn't exist." There was an uncomfortable pause on the line. "I see," Principal Winters said, his tone suggesting he didn't believe her either. "Well, perhaps you could provide some documentation of his service, just to help us better support Amara." Nadia gripped the counter, fighting to keep her composure. "I'll be at the school tomorrow morning. We can discuss this in person." She hung up before she said something she might regret. The next day, Amara noticed the black SUV had moved closer. It was now parked right outside the school gate, its engine running. As she walked to the building, she felt eyes following her. The man inside lifted what looked like a small camera and pointed it in her direction. He then typed something on a laptop beside him before pulling away from the curb. What Amara couldn't see was the email being sent from that vehicle. "Target located. Daily pattern confirmed. Awaiting extraction orders." Chapter 3. The Unraveling Truth. During recess, Amara tried to stay inconspicuous, keeping to the edges of the playground. But her brief moment of peace was shattered when Kyle Brooks approached with a few of his friends. "Hey, look! It's Helicopter Girl!" he called out, loud enough for others to hear. "Where's your imaginary dad today? Flying to the moon?" The boys laughed. Amara clutched her notebook tighter against her chest and tried to walk away. "Leave her alone," came a quiet voice behind her. Daniel had appeared, his thin shoulders squared despite his obvious nervousness. "Mind your own business, stutter boy," Kyle sneered, giving Daniel a hard shove that sent him sprawling onto the asphalt. Mrs. Peterson, supervising recess from nearby, saw the entire exchange but merely turned away, pretending to be occupied with another group of children. Amara helped Daniel to his feet, noticing the scrape on his palm from the fall. "Thanks," she whispered. "You didn't have to do that." I know what it's like when nobody believes you," Daniel replied, wiping his injured hand on his jeans. Later that afternoon, as Amara was retrieving her backpack from her cubby, she noticed Mr. Ramirez mopping the hallway floor nearby. He was humming softly to himself, a tune she didn't recognize. When she walked past him toward the exit, he paused in his work. "That's a nice drawing," he said, nodding toward the folder she was carrying, which had her helicopter sketch visible on the cover. Amara stopped, surprised by the friendly comment. Thank you. Your dad flies these? He asked casually, but there was something in his eyes, a knowing look. Amara nodded cautiously. Mr. Ramirez glanced around to make sure no one was within earshot, then lowered his voice. Tell him Ramirez still owes him a beer from Kandahar. Before Amara could respond, Mr. Ramirez resumed mopping, acting as if the exchange had never happened. She stood frozen for a moment, then hurried outside, her mind racing. Someone believed her. Someone knew her father. What Amara didn't know was that behind closed doors, the school counselor was making a call to Child Protective Services. Mr. Patterson sat at his desk, phone to his ear, flipping through notes from his session with Amara. Yes, I'd like to report a concerning situation, he said, his voice professional and measured. We have a student, Amara Malik, who appears to be living in a fantasy environment. Her mother is enabling elaborate falsehoods about a military father who may not exist. He paused, listening to the person on the other end. No signs of physical neglect, but the psychological implications are troubling. The mother works night shifts as a nurse, leaving the child alone frequently. And there's this elaborate fantasy structure that's being reinforced at home. Another pause. Yes, I understand. Thank you. He hung up, satisfied that he'd done his duty, never considering the real damage his assumptions might cause. That same afternoon, Nadia took a rare day off from work to drive to Fort Benning, where Tariq had been based before his current assignment. The security guard at the entrance checked her military spouse ID and directed her to the administration building. After an hour of being passed from one officer to another, Nadia finally sat across from Major Lewis, who had worked with Tariq in the past. I'm sorry, Mrs. Malik, he said, looking genuinely uncomfortable. Captain Malik's current assignment is classified at a level I don't have access to. I understand that, Nadia said, struggling to keep her frustration in check. I'm not asking for mission details. I just need confirmation that he's on active duty. His daughter is being humiliated at school because they don't believe her father exists. Major Lewis's expression softened slightly. I wish I could help you, but Captain Malik's clearance level has changed. Even his status is need to know at this point. Need to know? Nadia repeated incredulously. I'm his wife. I understand your frustration, ma'am, but these protocols exist for a reason. He slid a business card across the desk. This is the number for the family support office. They may be able to provide you with some resources. Nadia took the card automatically, but the sinking feeling in her stomach told her it would be useless. As she walked back to her car, red flags were rising in her mind. Something wasn't right. Tariq's missions had always been classified, but never to the point where she couldn't even confirm his deployment status. Back at school, the final bell had rung. As children streamed toward the exits, Amara lingered in the hallway, pretending to tie her shoe while actually listening to Mrs. Peterson speaking with the music teacher outside the classroom door. The child's clearly disturbed, Mrs. Peterson was saying, her voice low but not low enough. These people always reach for glory because they have so little of it. And can you believe the mother, coming in here with her attitude, insisting her husband is some kind of special forces hero, as if someone would marry her, let alone join our military? The words hit Amara like a physical blow. She'd suspected Mrs. Peterson didn't like her, but the naked contempt in the woman's voice confirmed it. Tears sprang to her eyes as she stood up abruptly, bumping into the wall and knocking down her own artwork that had been pinned there. Without stopping to pick it up, Amara ran down the hallway and out the main doors, leaving behind her crumpled helicopter drawing on the floor. After the hallway emptied, Daniel emerged from the water fountain alcove where he'd been hiding. He'd heard everything Mrs. Peterson said and had seen Amara flee. Slowly, he approached the fallen drawing, kneeling to pick it up. The paper was creased and slightly torn, but the image was still clear. A detailed sketch of a helicopter hovering over what looked like a burning building. In the helicopter doorway stood a man in uniform, reaching down toward a small figure below. Across the bottom, in Amara's careful handwriting, were the words, "You said you'd protect me." Daniel carefully smoothed out the drawing and folded it, tucking it into his pocket before heading home. That evening, as Nadia was helping Amara with homework at their kitchen table, a sharp knock at the door startled them both. Nadia peered through the peephole to see two official-looking people, a woman in a business suit and a man with a clipboard. Miss Malik, the woman said when Nadia opened the door. I'm Angela Morris from Child Protective Services. This is my colleague, Tom Watson. We need to speak with you regarding a report we've received concerning your daughter, Amara. Nadia felt the blood drain from her face. "What report? May we come in?" Angela asked, her tone making it clear it wasn't really a question. Once seated in the living room, Angela explained, "We've received information that Amara is being coached to lie about her family situation and may be left alone at night regularly." "That's ridiculous," Nadia said, her voice rising. "Who filed this report?" "We're not at liberty to disclose that information," Tom replied, making notes on his clipboard. "But we need to assess Amara's living conditions and interview her separately." Nadia stood up, anger flashing in her eyes. "This is because my child said her father flies a helicopter? Because a teacher decided my husband can't possibly exist? Because we're Muslim?" Angela remained calm. "We're just following protocol based on the report we received. If everything is as you say, you have nothing to worry about." "I want to see your credentials again," Nadia demanded, "and I want your supervisor's name and number." While Tom conducted a walkthrough of the apartment, Angela interviewed Amara in her bedroom. Nadia paced the hallway, feeling powerless and violated. After nearly 2 hours of questioning and inspection, Angela delivered their verdict. "Based on our initial assessment, we're recommending Amara be placed in temporary mental health observation overnight." "What?" Nadia nearly shouted. "You can't take my daughter!" "Miss Malik, this is a voluntary procedure at this point," Angela explained with practiced patience. "But if you refuse, we'll be forced to seek an emergency court order based on concerns about psychological manipulation and possible neglect." "This is insane," Nadia whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Mom?" Amara appeared in the hallway, her eyes wide with fear. "What's happening?" Nadia pulled her daughter close. "Nothing, Habibti. Just a misunderstanding we're going to fix." She looked up at the CPS workers with determination. "I'm calling a lawyer right now." "That's your right," Angela acknowledged. "But the observation period would give you time to gather whatever documentation you need to address these concerns. It's just overnight at Children's Behavioral Health." Trapped and knowing that fighting could make things worse, Nadia reluctantly agreed to the voluntary observation, promising Amara she would pick her up first thing in the morning with proof of everything. After Nadia left with Amara and the CPS workers, the house sat empty and dark for several hours. Shortly after midnight, a shadow moved across the front yard. The man from the SUV approached the back door, expertly picking the lock with military-grade tools. Once inside, he moved with practiced efficiency, searching methodically through each room. When he reached Amara's bedroom, he began examining everything, looking under the mattress, inside books, behind picture frames. Behind a well-loved teddy bear on the shelf, his fingers found what he was looking for, a small secure USB drive hidden in the bear's stuffing. He pocketed it with a satisfied smile. As he prepared to exit through the back door, a floorboard creaked behind him. Before he could turn, something struck him in the back, a powerful electric shock that sent him crumpling to the floor. A shadowy figure bent over him, retrieving the USB drive from his pocket. "Not tonight, Victor," the newcomer whispered, his American accent tinged with something harder to place. After securing the intruder with zip ties, the mysterious figure slipped out the way he had come in, taking the USB drive with him. At the hospital, Amara sat on the edge of a narrow bed in a sterile room that tried too hard to look cheerful with its bright yellow walls and cartoon decals. A child psychologist named Dr. Freeman sat across from her, clipboard in hand. "Amara, I'd like to talk about your father," she said gently. "Can you tell me about him?" Amara stared at her knees, refusing to speak. She'd answered these questions too many times already. "It's okay if you made him up, Doctor." Freeman continued. "Sometimes we create stories to help us feel better." Amara's head snapped up, her eyes blazing. "He's the only real thing," she whispered fiercely. "You just can't see him yet." Dr. Freeman made a note, her expression neutral. "And why can't we see him? Because he's saving people. Important people, and bad people want to stop him." "I see," Dr. Freeman murmured, writing something else down. "And these bad people, are they after you too?" Amara thought about the black SUV, about the way her mother's hands shook when she checked the locks at night. She thought about Mr. Ramirez's knowing look and the man who had broken into their home. She had seen him from her hospital window, had somehow known what was happening. But she said nothing. They wouldn't believe her anyway. Meanwhile, Nadia had returned home to find her back door ajar. Heart pounding, she grabbed a kitchen knife and cautiously entered, immediately dialing 911 when she saw the signs of intrusion. The police arrived quickly, finding the intruder still unconscious and bound in the living room. "Ma'am, do you know this man?" one officer asked as his partner handcuffed the still groggy burglar. Nadia shook her head, but there was something familiar about him. Something in his tactical clothing and military-style haircut that reminded her of Tariq's unit. As the police were leading the man away, Nadia's phone rang. The screen showed unknown caller. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. "You're in danger," a scrambled, distorted voice replied. "He's not just a pilot and they're coming for his daughter." "Who are you?" Nadia screamed into the phone. "What do you know about my husband?" The line went dead. After the police finally left, Nadia began her own thorough search of the house, looking for anything that might have been disturbed or taken. In Amara's room, she noticed the teddy bear lying on the floor instead of in its usual place on the shelf. Something about it triggered a memory. Tariq tucking something inside the bear the last time he was home, whispering to Amara that it was their special secret. Frantic now, Nadia checked the bear, finding the small slit in its back where something had clearly been removed. Whatever Tariq had hidden there was gone. Returning to her own bedroom, Nadia pulled books from the shelf, searching for anything Tariq might have left behind. Her hand paused on a worn copy of The Little Prince, Tariq's favorite book to read to Amara. As she pulled it down, she noticed it felt oddly heavy. Opening it, she found the inside had been hollowed out, containing a second flash drive. With shaking hands, she took it to her laptop. The drive contained dozens of encrypted files, most of which she couldn't open, but a few were accessible. Satellite images marked with foreign emblems, mission briefing headers with most details redacted, and a folder labeled simply Little Moon. Inside was a single document containing a list of coordinates and dates. Nadia sat back, her mind racing. Whatever Tariq was involved in went far beyond piloting helicopters, and somehow Amara was connected to it. At the observation facility, Amara lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The night nurse had checked on her an hour ago, noting her refusal to sleep. In the quiet darkness, Amara whispered to herself, a mantra of sorts. "He's real. He's coming," he promised. 3,000 miles away, in an underground hangar that didn't officially exist, Captain Tariq Malik stood before a stealth helicopter, its matte black surface absorbing the light around it. His commanding officer, Colonel Reeves, approached with a tablet displaying Amara's hospital admission records. "They found your daughter," Reeves said grimly. "Extraction protocol must begin. You have 48 hours." Tariq nodded, his expression hardening as he studied the tactical map on the screen before him. "I'm bringing her home," he said, his voice leaving no room for doubt. "Both of them." "The mission," Reeves began, "is secondary to my family's safety," Tariq finished. "Victor's team made their move. Now I make mine." As dawn broke over the city, Amara watched from her hospital window as the sky lightened from black to deep blue. Somewhere out there, she knew her father was coming. Despite what everyone said, despite the doubt that had begun to creep into even her young heart, she held on to that belief because Tariq Malik had made a promise. And as far as Amara knew, her father had never broken a promise. Back at home, Nadia was frantically gathering documents, Tariq's military ID, their marriage certificate, photographs, anything that would prove to CPS that she wasn't delusional, that her husband existed. But as she worked, a new fear was taking hold. If Tariq was involved in something dangerous enough to warrant break-ins and threats, what would happen when she brought attention to him? Her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. "Trust no one at the school. Meet me at the Veterans Memorial Park at noon." Nadia stared at the message. Could it be the janitor Amara had mentioned, Ramirez? Whoever it was, Nadia was running out of options. If this mysterious R knew something about Tariq, she had no choice but to meet him. But first, she needed to get her daughter back. As she gathered her keys and purse, Nadia glanced at the copy of The Little Prince on her nightstand. On impulse, she grabbed it, tucking it into her bag before heading out to reclaim Amara and restore the truth about their family. A truth that was becoming more complicated and dangerous by the hour. The underground hangar hummed with activity as Captain Tariq Malik zipped up his elite stealth flight gear. Unlike standard military issue, this suit was matte black with no insignia or identifiable markings, the uniform of a ghost. Around him, a small team of specialists prepared equipment, checking comm systems and loading gear into the helicopter's cargo bay. Colonel Reeves approached, a tablet tucked under his arm, and concern etched in the lines of his weathered face. He handed Tariq a sealed mission dossier labeled Operation Crescent, Civilian Extraction. "This crosses several lines, Captain," Reeves said quietly, making sure they weren't overheard. "Using military resources for a personal extraction is against protocol." Tariq accepted the dossier, his expression betraying nothing. "With all due respect, sir, my family's safety was guaranteed when I accepted this assignment," Reeves sighed. "I'm not arguing that point, but the timing couldn't be worse. We're 3 days away from completing the information transfer." "Then we'll have to accelerate the timeline." Tariq's tone left no room for debate. "They've located Amara. Victor's people don't take prisoners, especially child witnesses." The colonel nodded reluctantly. "You're not just a father, Tariq. You're the only one who can get her out." He checked his watch. "The stealth chopper is prepped for departure in 30 minutes. Your ground team will make contact at the rally point." As Tariq studied the mission briefing, his mind was split between the tactical considerations of the extraction and thoughts of his daughter's face, the way her eyes lit up whenever he told her bedtime stories about the stars. Across town, Nadia sat at her kitchen table, her laptop open before her. She'd spent hours trying to access more of the encrypted files on the flash drive from The Little Prince. Most remained locked behind security protocols she couldn't breach, but fragments had begun to emerge. Glimpses into Tariq's secret world. A video clip played on her screen, Tariq in what appeared to be the cargo hold of a helicopter, his expression tense as the camera shook violently. Gunfire could be heard in the background. The footage cut to an aerial view of a compound in flames, then to Tariq assisting wounded civilians into the aircraft. Just before the clip ended, a photograph flashed on screen. Nadia and Amara standing in front of their home, smiling. Static replaced the image, followed by code words Nadia didn't understand. She sat back, her coffee long forgotten and cold. This wasn't just any mission. Whatever Tariq was involved in, it went far beyond standard military operations. The evidence suggested some kind of high-risk extraction work, rescuing people from dangerous situations that officially didn't exist. Her phone buzzed with a reminder. 1 hour until her meeting with the mysterious R at the Veterans Memorial Park. First, though, she needed to pick up Amara from the observation facility. She closed the laptop, tucked it into her bag alongside the copy of The Little Prince, and headed for the door. Enjoying our stories? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our upcoming content. Now let's get back to our story. Chapter 4. Confrontations and Revelations at Pinecrest Elementary, Mrs. Peterson was holding court in the teacher's lounge, her voice carrying with self-importance. "I've scheduled all our parent speakers for Hero in the classroom week," she announced to her colleagues. "My brother David will be our most important guest. He's the regional manager at Summit Motors and has agreed to talk about business leadership." Mrs. Green, the 4th grade teacher, nodded politely. "That sounds lovely, Helen. I've had to make some adjustments to the schedule," Mrs. Peterson continued, a smug smile playing at her lips. "Some of our students seem to have difficulty understanding the difference between reality and fantasy." Mr. Patterson, the counselor, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Helen, about the Malik girl. I'm having second thoughts about that CPS report." Mrs. Peterson waved a dismissive hand. "Please. The child needs professional help, and clearly the mother is enabling these delusions. I heard they took her for overnight observation. It's for the best." "But what if we're wrong?" Mr. Patterson persisted. "What if her father really is in the military? We could be causing serious harm here." "Oh, come on, James," Mrs. Peterson scoffed. "A Muslim man as an elite military pilot? After everything that's happened in this country, be realistic. Those people don't serve America. They serve themselves. That girl needs to learn to accept reality instead of clinging to these elaborate fantasies." What Mrs. Peterson didn't know was that Daniel Chen was crouched in the hallway just outside the lounge door, his phone recording every word. He'd arrived early specifically for this purpose, having overheard Mrs. Peterson mention her morning coffee routine to another teacher. His hands trembled slightly as he stopped the recording and tucked the phone into his pocket. Gathering his courage, he made his way to the principal's office, where he asked the secretary if he could speak with Principal Winters. It was a bold move for a boy who usually struggled to speak up at all. Meanwhile, at the Children's Behavioral Health Center, Dr. Freeman was completing her morning evaluation of Amara. The girl sat on the edge of the bed, swinging her legs back and forth, her expression closed off. Amara, I want to help you, but I can only do that if you talk to me, Doctor, Freeman said gently. You already decided I'm lying, Amara replied flatly. So why should I talk, Doctor? Freeman paused, considering her approach. I haven't decided anything yet. But it's important for me to understand why you believe so strongly that your father is a helicopter pilot when your school records list him as unknown. Amara's head snapped up, her eyes flashing with anger. Unknown? My Baba is not unknown. He's Captain Tariq Malik of the United States Army. He flies special missions that save people's lives. Her voice rose with each word, months of frustration pouring out. Just because you can't see him doesn't mean he's not real. Just because he has brown skin and prays to Allah doesn't mean he can't love America. The outburst left Dr. Freeman momentarily speechless. There was something in the specific details and the raw emotion that gave her pause. This didn't sound like a typical childhood fantasy. Tell me more about your father, she said, her tone shifting subtly. At that moment, the door opened, and Nadia entered with a thick folder under her arm. I'm here to take my daughter home, she announced, her voice steady with newfound confidence. And I've brought documentation to address your concerns, Doctor. Freeman started to explain that the evaluation period wasn't complete, but Nadia cut her off by opening the folder on the table. Inside were military IDs, photographs, commendation letters, and family pictures, a paper trail of Tariq Malik's existence. My husband is on classified assignment, Nadia explained, her voice tight with controlled anger. His work is sensitive enough that sometimes even confirming his status is prohibited. But he exists. He serves. And my daughter should never have been brought here for telling the truth. Doctor. Freeman examined the documents, her expression shifting from skepticism to concern. These appear legitimate, she admitted. But why wouldn't the school have this information? Because I never thought I'd need to prove my husband exists, Nadia replied bitterly. At the Veterans Memorial Park, a cool breeze rustled through the autumn leaves as Nadia and Amara approached the arranged meeting spot. They'd left the hospital with apologies from Dr. Freeman and a promise to follow up with the school regarding the misunderstanding. Nadia scanned the area, looking for anyone who might be the mysterious R. The park was relatively empty on a weekday morning. An elderly couple walking along the path, a young mother pushing a stroller, a man in a maintenance uniform raking leaves. The maintenance worker glanced up as they passed, and Nadia recognized him immediately, Mr. Ramirez from Pinecrest Elementary. He continued raking, but moved closer to the bench where they'd stopped to rest. Don't look directly at me, he said quietly as he worked. Just listen. Your husband saved my life in Kandahar 4 years ago. Operation Sandstone. I was DEA undercover, compromised. He flew in when no one else would. Nadia's heart raced, but she kept her face neutral, pretending to adjust Amara's jacket. Victor Petrov, Ramirez continued. Former FSB, now private contractor. He's after something Tariq has, or something he knows, and he thinks Amara might be the key. Why Amara? Nadia whispered, her blood running cold. Children remember things adults miss. Details? Conversations. Coordinates. He paused his raking. Last night, someone broke into your home. It wasn't Petrov, but one of his men. They're looking for a data drive. The bear, Amara said suddenly. The teddy bear Baba gave me. Ramirez nodded almost imperceptibly. It's already been secured, but they'll keep coming. What do we do? Nadia asked, fighting to keep her voice level. Tariq's coming. Tomorrow, hero in the classroom day. He smiled faintly. The man always had a flair for the dramatic. But you need to be careful until then. They're watching the school, your home, everywhere. Captain Malik, we're 30 minutes from the insertion point, the co-pilot announced as the stealth helicopter cut through the night sky. Below them, the landscape of rural Virginia had given way to the outskirts of the small city Tariq now called home. Tariq checked his tactical gear one last time, mentally reviewing the extraction plan. His team consisted of 4 specialists, all handpicked for their discretion and skill set. None wore standard military uniforms or insignia, a precaution necessary for a mission that technically didn't exist. Sir, satellite feed confirms 2 vehicles positioned near the target's residence and 1 near the school, a communications specialist reported, passing him a tablet displaying thermal imaging of the area. Petrov's men, Tariq muttered. Any sign of Petrov himself? Negative, sir. But intelligence suggests he's in the area. Tariq's jaw clenched. Victor Petrov had once been an ally, a Russian intelligence officer collaborating on joint counter-terrorism operations. But the man had gone rogue, selling his skills to the highest bidder and betraying both his country and theirs. Their last encounter in Syria had left Petrov with a scar that ran from his eye to his jawline, a permanent reminder of Tariq's combat knife. "He'll want to be there in person," Tariq said grimly. "This is personal for him." The communications specialist hesitated. "Sir, there's something else. The school called in a CPS report on your daughter. She was taken for psychological evaluation." Tariq's eyes hardened. "Because she told them about me?" "Yes, sir." They didn't believe her. For a moment, raw anger flashed across Tariq's face before he regained his composure. "Status update on our ground contact? Ramirez has made contact with your family. They're aware of the extraction timeline." Tariq nodded, turning his attention back to the mission parameters. "Review the school layout again. I want every entry point, every blind spot, every potential complication identified." As the team began their final briefing, Tariq's thoughts drifted to the last time he'd seen Amara. Her small form curled against his chest as he told her stories about the stars, her eyes heavy with sleep but fighting to stay open just a little longer. He'd promised to return, as he always did. But this time, the promise had become more complicated, more dangerous. "Hold on, little moon," he whispered to himself. "I'm coming." Back at Pinecrest Elementary, Principal Winters sat behind his desk, his expression grave as he replayed the recording Daniel had brought him. The boy sat nervously in a chair across from him, his mother beside him, having been called in to accompany her son. "And you recorded this in the teacher's lounge this morning?" Principal Winters asked, his voice carefully neutral. Daniel nodded, his eyes fixed on his shoes. I know I shouldn't have been eavesdropping, but they were being mean about Amara and nobody believed her. And I thought maybe if someone heard what they were really saying..." "Mrs." Chen placed a hand on her son's shoulder. "Daniel has a strong sense of justice," she explained. "He's been very upset about how this girl has been treated." Principal Winters sighed heavily. The recording contained not just unprofessional comments, but explicitly prejudiced statements that violated district policy, and worse, had led to a child being wrongfully reported to CPS. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Daniel," he said finally. "What you did, recording without permission, wasn't the right way to handle this. But your intentions were good. I'll need to speak with Mrs. Peterson immediately." As if on cue, there was a knock at the door, and the secretary poked her head in. "Sir, Miss Malik is here to see you. She says it's urgent." Principal Winters nodded. "Send her in." "Mrs. Chen, Daniel, thank you for coming. You're free to go, but please know this matter isn't closed." As Mrs. Chen and Daniel left, they passed Nadia in the hallway. Daniel gave Nadia a small, shy smile that she returned automatically, not recognizing him as her daughter's only defender. Nadia entered the principal's office, the folder of documentation clutched tightly in her hands. To her surprise, Principal Winters looked distinctly uncomfortable, even before she began speaking. "I'm Miss Malik, I was just about to call you," he began. "It seems there's been a serious misunderstanding regarding your daughter and your family's situation." Nadia's prepared speech faltered. "You've spoken with Dr. Freeman?" "No, but I've just received some troubling information about how this situation developed." He gestured to the chair opposite his desk. "Please sit down. I believe we have a lot to discuss, including how to rectify the harm that's been done to your daughter." As they spoke, neither was aware of the man in the black SUV parked across from the school, watching the entrance through high-powered binoculars. Viktor Petrov's scarred face twisted into a cold smile as he observed Nadia entering the building. Everything was falling into place. He picked up his phone and dialed. "Start moving the assets into position," he ordered. "Tomorrow, we take the girl and eliminate Malik once and for all." Inside the school, Mrs. Peterson was summoned to the principal's office. As she walked down the hallway, she straightened her blouse and rehearsed her explanation about the CPS report. How she'd only been acting in the child's best interest, how concerning Amara's delusions had been. But when she entered the office and saw Nadia sitting there with a folder of military documentation spread across the desk, and Principal Winters' stern expression, she realized her carefully constructed narrative was crumbling. "Mrs. Peterson," Principal Winters said, his voice unusually cold, "we need to discuss your treatment of Amara Malik and the false report you encouraged Mr. Patterson to file with CPS." Mrs. Peterson's face paled. "I don't know what you mean. I was simply concerned about a child in my care who was clearly fabricating stories. Stories that were true. Nadia interrupted, her voice steady. My husband is Captain Tariq Malik of the United States Army, currently assigned to a classified unit. He flies helicopters on special operations missions. Everything my daughter told you was true. But you chose not to believe her because of our faith, our names, our appearance. That's absurd, Mrs. Peterson sputtered. We have a recording, Helen, Principal Winters said quietly. Mrs. Peterson froze. A recording? From the teacher's lounge this morning. I've heard your comments about Muslims not serving America, about the Malik family serving themselves. Your prejudice led you to dismiss a child's truth and subject her to unnecessary trauma. Mrs. Peterson's indignation collapsed, replaced by a dawning realization of the seriousness of her position. I never meant to harm anyone, she said weakly. And yet you did, Nadia replied, her voice tight with emotion. You humiliated my daughter in front of her peers. You called her a liar for speaking the truth. You reported us to CPS and had her taken away for psychological evaluation, all because you couldn't believe that a Muslim man would serve this country, that he could be a hero. Principal Winters cleared his throat. Mrs. Peterson, I'm placing you on administrative leave pending a full investigation. Please gather your personal items and leave the campus immediately. As Mrs. Peterson left the office in stunned silence, Nadia turned to Principal Winters. Tomorrow is Hero in the Classroom Day, she said. My husband would like to participate. Principal Winters blinked in surprise. Your husband is available? I thought he was on deployment. A small, mysterious smile played at Nadia's lips. He's coming home for a special visit. He's very excited to show the children what a military helicopter pilot really does. That evening, as Nadia helped Amara prepare for bed, there was a lightness between them that had been missing for months. The vindication at school, the knowledge that Tariq was coming home, it had restored something essential in their relationship. Will Baba really be here tomorrow? Amara asked, her eyes shining with hope as she clutched her walkie-talkie. Yes, Habibti, Nadia assured her, tucking the covers around her daughter. Your father always keeps his promises, even when no one believes in him. Especially then, Nadia said softly, kissing Amara's forehead. That's what makes him a hero. After Amara fell asleep, Nadia sat in the living room, the curtains drawn tightly closed. She knew Petrov's men were watching the house. Ramirez had confirmed as much. But tomorrow would end this nightmare one way or another. She clutched her phone, waiting for the secure message that would tell her Tariq was safely in position. At 11:47 p.m. it came, a single text from an unknown number. The stars are brightest just before dawn. Be ready. Outside, a gentle rain began to fall, obscuring the black SUV parked half a block away. Inside the vehicle, Viktor Petrov studied the satellite images of Pinecrest Elementary one final time, his scarred face illuminated by the blue glow of his laptop screen. His men were in position, the extraction team ready. By this time tomorrow, he would have the data he needed, and Captain Tariq Malik would be a memory. What Petrov didn't know was that 3 miles away, a stealth helicopter was touching down in an abandoned warehouse district, its arrival masked by the storm. And stepping out into the rain, his face set with grim determination, was the man who had sworn to protect his family at any cost, a promise he intended to keep, no matter who stood in his way. Chapter 5. The Day of Truth. The morning of Hero in the classroom. Day dawned gray and misty, the lingering rain casting a silvery sheen over Pinecrest Elementary. Inside the school, excitement buzzed through the hallways as children arrived with their parents in tow. Mothers and fathers dressed in the uniforms of their various professions. Police officers, nurses, firefighters, business people, and tradespeople filled the visitor parking lot, sign-in sheets, and hallways. In Mrs. Green's classroom, where Amara's class had been temporarily relocated following Mrs. Peterson's administrative leave, the students sat at attention, wide-eyed as Tommy's mother explained dental procedures using oversized prop teeth and a toothbrush the size of a baseball bat. Amara sat in the front row, unusually quiet even for her. She wore her best dress, a deep blue with silver embroidery that her father had brought her from overseas, and her hijab was perfectly arranged, secured with a small crescent moon pin. Every few minutes, her eyes darted to the clock, then to the window, then back to the presenter, a pattern of nervous anticipation that didn't go unnoticed by Daniel, who sat beside her. "Is he really coming?" Daniel whispered, keeping his eyes forward. Amara nodded, a tiny movement that conveyed absolute certainty. Nadia stood at the back of the classroom with the other parents, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. The message from Tariq had come at 5:17 a.m. Fourth presenter. "Be ready." Outside, in the staff parking lot, Mr. Ramirez was not sweeping the walkways as usual. Instead, he stood near the maintenance shed, speaking quietly into what appeared to be a normal walkie-talkie, but was, in fact, a military-grade encrypted communication device. "Perimeter check complete," he reported. 2 hostiles by the east entrance, 1 at the main gate, 2 more circling in vehicles. "No sign of Petrov yet." "Understood," came the response, a voice that wasn't Tariq's but one of his team members. "Maintain position. Extraction team on standby." Across town, in a nondescript motel room, Viktor Petrov sat cleaning his weapon, a custom Glock with a silencer attachment. 4 men surrounded him, each checking their own equipment, comm devices, tactical gear, and weapons designed for quick and quiet operations. "The schedule?" Petrov asked, his Russian accent barely noticeable after years of operating internationally. "First presentation starts at 9 a.m., running approximately 20 minutes each," one of his men replied. "Our intelligence suggests Malik's wife and daughter are both at the school." No confirmation on Malik himself, but chatter suggests he may attempt contact. Petrov smiled coldly, running a finger along the scar on his face. Perfect. He was always sentimental, his weakness. "We move during the 3rd presentation. Take the girl, secure the data, eliminate any resistance." He slid the magazine into his pistol with a decisive click. "And if Malik shows his face, I'll finish what I started in Damascus." Back at the school, the 2nd presenter, Jason's mother, the accountant, was wrapping up her surprisingly engaging demonstration on how mathematics helps solve financial crimes. The children applauded politely as Mrs. Green took the microphone. "Thank you, Mrs. Evans, for that fascinating look at forensic accounting. Now, our 3rd presenter is..." She consulted her list, Mr. Wilson, Sophia's father, who will tell us all about hardware stores and building supplies. As Mr. Wilson made his way to the front, Nadia received another text. "In position. Get ready to move to the auditorium after this presentation." She texted back a simple "understood" and slipped her phone into her pocket, catching Amara's eye and giving her daughter a reassuring nod. Outside the school, the black SUV containing Viktor Petrov and 2 of his operatives pulled into a visitor space. Dressed in business attire with visitor badges they'd forged the previous day, they looked like any other parent guests. The only thing distinguishing Petrov was the thin scar running down his face, which he'd partially concealed with makeup. "Team 2 in position at the east exit," came a voice through his earpiece. "Team 3 covering the playground," added another. Petrov smiled thinly. "Proceed as planned. The girl is the primary target. She has the information we need, even if she doesn't know it." As they exited the vehicle, none of them noticed the maintenance worker who had just finished adjusting a sprinkler head near the visitors' parking lot. Nor did they see him discreetly photographing them with what appeared to be a regular smartphone, but was in fact a high-resolution imaging device, transmitting directly to Tariq's team. Inside the classroom, Mr. Wilson was enthusiastically explaining the differences between various types of screwdrivers when Nadia moved quietly to Mrs. Green's side. "There's been a change in plans," she whispered. "Captain Malik has requested we move to the auditorium for his presentation. He has some special equipment." Mrs. Green looked surprised but nodded. "Of course. Let me just thank Mr. Wilson and we'll transition." As Mr. Wilson concluded to polite applause, Mrs. Green addressed the class. "Boys and girls, we have a special treat. Our next presenter has requested we move to the auditorium for a more exciting demonstration. Please line up quietly." The children scrambled to form a line, buzzing with curiosity. Amara's heart pounded so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. "It's him, isn't it?" Daniel whispered beside her. "Your D-Dad?" Amara nodded, a smile breaking across her face like sunrise. As the class filed into the hallway, Nadia positioned herself beside Amara, casually taking her daughter's hand. To anyone watching, it was a simple maternal gesture, but the slight pressure of her grip communicated something else to Amara. Be alert. Be ready. Across the hallway, Petrov and his men had entered the building, blending with the other parents, moving between classrooms. His cold eyes fixed on Amara, a small girl in a blue dress and hijab, holding her mother's hand as she walked with her class toward the auditorium. His target. "Sir, do we move now?" one of his men asked through their discreet communication system. "No," Petrov replied softly. "Too many witnesses in the hallway. We'll take her during the presentation. The auditorium offers multiple exits and better control of the situation." The class filed into the large auditorium, which was already half filled with other classes who had been invited to see what was being billed as a special presentation. On the stage, a podium stood empty, a projection screen behind it showing only the Pinecrest Elementary logo. Nadia guided Amara to a seat in the third row, with Daniel sitting beside her. As the children settled, Nadia leaned down and whispered, "Whatever happens, stay close to me, Habibti." Amara nodded, her eyes scanning the room for any sign of her father. Principal Winters stepped up to the podium, tapping the microphone. "Good morning, Pinecrest Elementary. We have a very special guest for Hero in the Classroom Day. It's my pleasure to introduce Captain Tariq Malik of the United States Army, who has flown in, quite literally, to tell us about his work as a military helicopter pilot." A murmur of excitement rippled through the crowd. Amara sat up straighter, her eyes shining. Across the auditorium, Petrov tensed, his hand moving instinctively toward his concealed weapon. "Captain Malik is currently serving in a specialized unit, and we're honored that he's taken time from his important duties to be with us today," Principal Winters continued. "Please give him a warm Pinecrest welcome." The side door of the auditorium opened, and Tariq Malik entered in full dress uniform, his captain's bars gleaming on his shoulders, his chest adorned with service ribbons and medals. He was taller than most remembered, with a strong jawline and eyes that missed nothing as they swept across the room, briefly lingering on his daughter before continuing their assessment. Amara's smile was radiant as she watched her father stride confidently to the podium, shaking Principal Winters' hand before turning to face the audience. Several of her classmates were staring at her in disbelief, connecting the man on stage with the stories they'd mocked. "Good morning, everyone," Tariq began, his voice warm but commanding. "My name is Captain Tariq Malik, and I fly helicopters for the United States Army." He clicked a remote, and the screen behind him came to life with footage of a Black Hawk helicopter in flight. Helicopters are incredible machines that can do things no other aircraft can do. They can hover in place, fly backward, sideways, and land almost anywhere. As Tariq continued his presentation, Petrov and his men had separated, strategically positioning themselves around the perimeter of the auditorium. One near the main exit, one by the side door, and Petrov himself moving slowly down the aisle toward where Amara sat. What Petrov didn't know was that every movement was being tracked. "Mr. Ramirez had slipped into the back of the auditorium, his maintenance uniform exchanged for tactical gear concealed under a jacket. Other members of Tariq's extraction team were similarly positioned throughout the room. A woman who appeared to be a teacher's aide, a man who had been checking visitor passes at the entrance, and several others blending perfectly with the crowd of parents. On stage, Tariq was showing a video of a helicopter rescue operation, carefully edited to remove classified elements while still demonstrating the work. "Sometimes," he explained, "my job is to go into dangerous places to help people who are trapped or in trouble. The helicopter allows us to reach places that would be impossible by any other means." He clicked to the next slide, which showed a group of children being helped onto a helicopter in what was clearly a disaster zone. This was after a major earthquake in Nepal. "Our team helped evacuate children from an orphanage in a remote mountain village." The audience was captivated, adults and children alike watching in awe as Tariq explained how the helicopter had hovered alongside a crumbling cliff face to make the rescue possible. Amara watched with pride, occasionally glancing around to see her classmates' reactions. It was then that she noticed a man moving slowly down the aisle toward her row. A man with a thin scar partially concealed by makeup. Something about him made her blood run cold. "Mama!" she whispered urgently, tugging at Nadia's sleeve. Nadia followed her daughter's gaze, her eyes widening slightly in recognition. She discreetly pressed a button on her phone, a silent alert to Tariq and his team. On stage, Tariq received the signal through a nearly invisible earpiece. Without missing a beat in his presentation, he pressed a hidden button on his watch, the extraction signal. "And now," he said, his voice taking on an extra note of enthusiasm, "I'd like to show you something really special. If you'll all direct your attention to the windows on the right side of the auditorium." As the audience turned to look, a low, rumbling vibration began to fill the room. The sound grew steadily louder, the unmistakable whump 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 of helicopter rotors. Outside, a sleek black military helicopter appeared, hovering alongside the school building, close enough that the children could see the pilot through the cockpit window. Excited gasps and cries filled the auditorium as papers fluttered from the disturbance created by the rotors. In the moment of distraction, several things happened simultaneously. Petrov lunged forward, reaching for Amara. Nadia pulled her daughter protectively against her. Mr. Ramirez and two other members of Tariq's team moved swiftly toward Petrov and his men. And on stage, Tariq Malik dropped his presenter persona entirely, his expression hardening as he vaulted off the stage in a single fluid movement. "Code Red!" Principal Winter's voice came urgently over the school's PA system, the emergency lockdown protocol that teachers had drilled for but never expected to use. "This is not a drill. All teachers secure your students." Chaos erupted in the auditorium as teachers frantically tried to gather their students. Parents moved to protect their children, and Petrov's men drew their weapons. "Mama!" Amara cried as Petrov grabbed for her arm. Before he could touch her, Daniel, quiet, stuttering Daniel, swung his backpack with all his might, catching Petrov in the side of the head. The unexpected attack from the small boy caused Petrov to stumble backward, buying precious seconds. "Run!" Nadia yelled, pushing Amara toward the side exit where one of Tariq's team members was already ushering children to safety. A gunshot rang out, one of Petrov's men firing at Mr. Ramirez, who had tackled him to the ground. The bullet went wide, striking the ceiling and sending plaster raining down. Screams filled the auditorium as parents and children dove for cover. Tariq fought his way through the panicking crowd, his eyes locked on his wife and daughter. 20 feet separated them. 20 feet filled with terrified, scrambling people, and at least one armed hostile. "Tariq!" Nadia called, her voice barely audible above the chaos. Another shot rang out. Tariq ducked instinctively, then spotted Petrov regaining his balance, raising his weapon toward Amara's retreating form. "No!" Tariq lunged forward, colliding with Petrov and sending them both crashing into a row of chairs. The guns skittered across the floor as the two men grappled. Petrov's face twisted with hate, his scar livid against his skin. "You should have died in Damascus!" he snarled, landing a vicious blow to Tariq's ribs. Tariq absorbed the hit, years of combat training taking over as he locked Petrov in a hold. "It's over, Victor. Your men are being neutralized as we speak." Indeed, around the auditorium, Tariq's extraction team had swiftly and efficiently disabled Petrov's operatives. Mr. Ramirez had one pinned to the ground, his knee in the man's back. Another team member, the supposed teacher's aide, had disarmed a second hostile with what appeared to be martial arts training. Outside, the helicopter hovered closer, its presence both a distraction and a reminder that extraction was imminent. Petrov laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. "You think I came alone? Your family will never be safe, Malik. We know about the data. We know what your daughter saw." Tariq's grip tightened. "She saw nothing. The intel was a decoy, bait to draw you out. There is no data." Confusion flickered across Petrov's face, quickly replaced by rage. With a roar, he broke free of Tariq's hold and lunged for his fallen weapon. Time seemed to slow. Tariq saw Petrov's fingers close around the gun. He saw Nadia at the exit, shielding Amara with her body. He saw Daniel standing frozen in the aisle, too terrified to move. And he saw Mr. Ramirez raising his own weapon with the practiced precision of a trained operative. Two shots echoed almost simultaneously. Petrov fell forward, a red stain spreading across his shoulder. His own shot went wide, striking a chair mere inches from where Daniel stood. Tariq didn't hesitate. He sprinted to the exit where Nadia and Amara waited, scooping his daughter into his arms. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, his eyes searching her face. "No, Baba," Amara replied, her arms wrapping tightly around his neck. "You came, just like you promised." Tariq pressed a kiss to her forehead, then looked to Nadia. "We need to move now." Outside, police sirens wailed in the distance, too late to the scene as Tariq had planned. His team had already secured Petrov and his men, and the extraction route was clear. As they hurried down the hallway toward the side exit where the helicopter waited, Daniel suddenly appeared beside them, his thin face pale but determined. "Amara!" he called, his stutter momentarily forgotten in the adrenaline of the moment. Amara looked back, still clinging to her father. "Daniel, you have to come with us!" Tariq hesitated. looking at the boy who had defended his daughter when no one else would. Protocol dictated leaving civilian witnesses behind, but Petrov's network was vast. The boy could be in danger simply for having helped Amara. "His mother," Nadia said urgently. "We can't take him without—" "Already on it, mister," Ramirez reported, appearing beside them with Mrs. Chen in tow, her face a mask of confusion and fear. "What's happening?" she demanded. "Someone said there were gunshots." "Ma'am, your son may be in danger," Tariq explained quickly. "He helped protect my daughter from very dangerous people. We need to get you both to safety until the threat is fully contained." Mrs. Chen looked from Tariq to her son, then to the unmistakable form of a military helicopter now visible through the exit doors. Understanding dawned in her eyes, along with a mother's fierce protectiveness. "What do we need to do?" she asked simply. Moments later, the helicopter lifted off from the Pinecrest Elementary playground, carrying Tariq, Nadia, Amara, Daniel, Mrs. Chen, and 2 members of the extraction team. "On the ground, mister." Ramirez and the remaining team members handled the cleanup operation, coordinating with local law enforcement who had finally arrived on scene. Inside the helicopter, Amara sat secured between her parents, Daniel, and his mother across from them. Through the window, she could see her school growing smaller below them, and beyond it, the town that had refused to believe her truth. "Where are we going, Baba?" she asked, raising her voice to be heard over the rotor noise. Tariq smiled, the first genuine smile he'd allowed himself since the operation began. "Somewhere safe, little moon. Somewhere we can be together for a while." Amara nodded, satisfied with the answer. She looked across at Daniel, who was staring wide-eyed out the window, his fear giving way to amazement at the experience of flight. "See?" she told him. "I told you my Baba flies helicopters." Daniel grinned back at her, finding his voice again. "Nobody's going to call you a liar again." As the helicopter banked toward the setting sun, Tariq wrapped his arm around his family, the weight of the past months lifting from his shoulders. The mission wasn't completely over. Petrov's network would need to be dismantled, their home would need to be secured, and eventually, they would have to decide whether to return to their old lives or start fresh elsewhere. But for now, in this moment suspended between earth and sky, Captain Tariq Malik had fulfilled his most important mission. He had kept his promise to his daughter. He had shown everyone, especially those who had dismissed her because of her faith and heritage, that sometimes the most dangerous mistake is refusing to believe a child when she speaks the truth. Chapter 6. A New Beginning. 3 months later, the first snow of winter dusted the grounds of a secluded military facility in Virginia. Inside a comfortable residential building set apart from the main complex, Amara Malik sat at a kitchen table, working diligently on her schoolwork. Online learning had its challenges, but she'd adapted quickly, as children often do. Nadia moved around the kitchen preparing dinner, pausing occasionally to help with a math problem or check on the lamb stew simmering on the stove. From the window, she could see the sprawling training grounds where, even now, her husband was conducting a briefing with a new team of pilots. Life had changed dramatically since that day at Pinecrest Elementary. The events, officially classified as a security exercise gone wrong in public records, had resulted in the arrest of Viktor Petrov and the dismantling of a significant portion of his intelligence network. The true nature of what had transpired was known only to a select few, and the military had been quick to contain the situation. Mrs. Peterson had been quietly dismissed from her teaching position, facing not only administrative review, but also an investigation into her discriminatory practices that affected multiple students from minority backgrounds over the years. Principal Winters had issued a formal apology to the Malik family, though they had already relocated by then. A knock at the door pulled Nadia from her thoughts. She opened it to find Daniel Chen and his mother carrying a covered dish and a small gift bag. "We brought dumplings," Mrs. Chen announced with a warm smile. Daniel made them himself. The Chens had also been relocated for their protection, though their situation was temporary. Mrs. Chen had been offered a position at the base's medical facility, her nursing skills a welcome addition to their staff, while arrangements were made for their eventual return to civilian life with new identities. "Amara, Daniel is here," Nadia called, ushering them inside. Amara's face lit up as she abandoned her schoolwork and rushed to greet her friend. In the months since their escape, the 2 children had formed an unbreakable bond, forged in the crucible of danger and solidified by their shared experience as outsiders. I've finished the model, Daniel announced proudly, reaching into his backpack to produce a meticulously assembled replica of a Black Hawk helicopter, complete with tiny painted details and a miniature American flag. "It's perfect!" Amara exclaimed, carefully taking the model. "Baba will love it." As if summoned by his name, the front door opened and Captain Amara Malik stepped inside, still in his flight suit. His face, more relaxed than it had been in years, broke into a wide smile at the sight of his family and their guests. "I see the welcoming committee has arrived," he joked, hanging up his jacket. He greeted Mrs. Chen warmly, then crouched down to examine Daniel's handiwork. "This is extraordinary craftsmanship, Daniel. You've got an engineer's eye for detail." Daniel beamed at the praise, his stutter less pronounced than it had once been. "Thank you, sir. I used the M manual you gave me for reference." As they gathered around the dinner table, the conversation flowed easily. Discussions of Daniel's progress in his martial arts classes. Tariq had insisted on teaching both children basic self-defense. Amara's accelerated science curriculum, and news from their old town filtered through Mrs. Chen's relatives who still lived in the area. The school board implemented a new cultural sensitivity training program, Mrs. Chen reported, and they've started a series on religious diversity that features American Muslims who serve in various capacities: military, medicine, education. Nadia exchanged a knowing look with her husband. Though they couldn't take public credit, their experience had sparked meaningful changes. After dinner, while the adults lingered over tea in the living room, Amara took Daniel to the small yard behind their quarters, where a tire swing hung from a sturdy oak tree. "Do you ever miss it?" Daniel asked as they took turns pushing each other. "Our old school? Your old house?" Amara considered the question seriously, as she did most things. "I miss some of it," she admitted. "My room with the stars Baba painted on the ceiling, the library downtown. But I don't miss feeling like I had to prove myself all the time." Daniel nodded in understanding. "My mom says we might go back eventually. Not to the same town, but somewhere in normal. Will you go back too?" Amara shrugged, looking up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "I don't know. Baba says it depends on many things." She lowered her voice dramatically. "State secrets." They both giggled at her exaggerated spy tone. "But we won't forget each other, right?" Daniel asked, suddenly serious. "Even if we live in different places?" "Never," Amara promised firmly. "Friends who save each other from bad guys with guns are friends forever. That's the rule." Daniel grinned. "I still can't believe I hit that man with my backpack." "You were brave," Amara said sincerely. "Like a superhero." Inside, Tariq watched the children through the window, his expression thoughtful. Nadia joined him, slipping her hand into his. "What's on your mind, Captain?" she asked softly. "I'm thinking about alternatives," he replied. "This assignment will end eventually. The threat from Petrov's remaining network is diminishing. We'll need to decide what comes next. Back to regular military life? Moving from base to base?" Tariq shook his head slightly. "I've been offered a training position here. Permanent. Teaching new pilots for special operations. Less field work, more stability?" Nadia's eyes widened. "You'd consider it? Giving up flying missions?" He turned to face her fully. "I made a promise to Amara. To always come back. Each mission makes that promise harder to keep." His gaze returned to the window where their daughter was now showing Daniel how to make the tire swing spin. "And I've realized something important. Being believed in by your family, having that absolute faith that Amara showed in me, even when everyone else doubted, that's worth more than any mission." Nadia leaned against him, feeling the solid strength of his presence. No longer a distant memory or a classified secret, but real and constant. "So we stay? Build a life here?" "If you're willing," he said. "You could finish your master's degree at the nearby university. Amara could attend the base school. They have an excellent program for gifted children, and the Chens might stay too." Mrs. Chen mentioned she's been offered a permanent position. The possibility of stability, of putting down roots, hung between them like a precious but fragile thing. "What about the rest of the world?" Nadia asked quietly. "All those people who still look at us and see only our faith, our names, our appearance? Who still believe Muslims can't be American heroes?" Tariq considered this, his expression resolute. "We can't change everyone's minds, but we can live our truth openly. I've been authorized to participate in certain public events, Veterans Day ceremonies, recruitment drives, even the occasional school visit. A smile quirked at the corner of his mouth. Apparently, the army has realized the value of showing that its heroes come in all faiths and colors. Outside, Amara's laughter rang clear in the cold evening air as she and Daniel chased each other around the yard, their breath making small clouds in the chilly air. She won't have to fight so hard to be believed anymore, Nadia realized aloud. No, Tariq agreed. But she'll always know that she was right to hold on to her truth, even when the world tried to take it from her. That's a strength no one can ever take away. As darkness fell completely, Tariq called the children inside. Later, after the Chens had gone home and Amara was tucked into bed, he sat beside her, continuing their nightly tradition. Baba, Amara asked sleepily, are you going to fly away again soon? Tariq smoothed her hair gently. Not far, little moon, and not for long. I'll be teaching other pilots now, here at this base. Her eyes widened slightly. We're staying? Forever? For a good long while, he promised. You'll go to school here, make new friends, though none will ever be as brave as Daniel, I think. And we'll be a normal family again. Amara considered this, her young face solemn in the glow of her bedside lamp. But I liked being special. I liked that my Baba was a hero even when no one believed me. I'll always be your hero, Amara, Tariq said softly. But now maybe I can be something else too. What? Just your Baba. Here every night to tuck you in. Here every morning to see you off to school. Here to help with homework and attend your science fairs and teach you to drive someday. He smiled. That's a different kind of special. Amara yawned, her eyes growing heavy. I'd like that, she murmured. But can you still tell me helicopter stories sometimes? Every night if you want, he promised, leaning down to kiss her forehead. Sweet dreams, little moon. Sweet dreams, Baba, she whispered back, already drifting towards sleep. Tariq lingered for a moment, watching his daughter's peaceful face, remembering the fierce certainty with which she had defended his existence, his truth, to a world determined to doubt her. In the face of prejudice and disbelief, his 8-year-old daughter had stood firm, holding on to what she knew to be true. In her own way, Amara had been as much a hero as any soldier he'd ever served with. And now, as he quietly closed her bedroom door and went to join Nadia in their living room, Captain Tariq Malik, decorated pilot, elite operative, American soldier, embraced his most important mission yet. Being the father his daughter had never doubted he was, in a country that was finally beginning to see beyond its preconceptions to the truth of who they really were, a family. Americans, heroes in their own right, not despite their faith, but strengthened by it. Outside their window, the stars shone down on the base, on the country, on a world that sometimes learned its most important lessons from the unwavering belief of a child who refused to let her truth be silenced.